How we doing? We're going at episode 2 of Sprint Mechanics. I'm Coach Nate, head strength coach of Total Performance in Mount Kisco, New York. If you watched the first episode, great. If this is your first one, welcome aboard. This is a show for sprint mechanics and coaching, sprinting for athletes and coaches alike. I've been specializing in speed performance training for the last several years, but also I like to talk shit, talk shop, and I might go on a tangent here or there. So if you have any questions about today's episode or any questions about sprint training in general, you can DM me at CoachNateG on Instagram.com or shoot me an email at nate@tpstrength.com. So today we're going to be looking at ACCEL patterns and some of the different athlete types and how that influences their strategies to get from point A to point B, or even from their 0 to 1 step or their second to third step, and how that influences their ability to pick up speed or accelerate as they go. Might go on a few tangents there talking about different body types and whatnot, maybe use me as an example, but by no means am I the fastest guy to be comparing yourself to. I think I look pretty good with my technique, but there's definitely some stuff that I would like to fix, but I definitely don't have the time to. So we might look at that. And then also, I've been noticing a big trend as far as some of the advertising strategies people use, or the big companies have used, like ChatGPT and OpenAI, and they use a lot of athletes and the athletes looking up coaching or training routines to complete, which I think is great. Like, yeah, the more information that's out there that you can use to help better yourself, to help improve your skill set, fantastic. But by no means does that mean that ChatGPT can replace a coach. As biased as that may sound, it will get you there. It will get you there. But if you really want the best, you got to work hand on hand with somebody or with a team, right? And then finally, like I kind of touched on already, we'll look at body types, and how that influences some of the mechanics I've seen with sprints, with sprint technique, and different levels of training experience and different sporting backgrounds, and how it all plays a role on how I coach my athletes and how you should probably train as well. So right now we're going to be looking at Freedy. I've talked about him in a couple other videos previously. The guys I send out most regularly are the people that work with me, right? So if you see a few videos of the same kid over and over again, like that, know that kid's been consistent, right? If you don't see a kid for a while, I haven't seen him in a while. So Freedy's been with me throughout the spring so far. I was one of my handful of guys that kind of got on board or stayed on board for the spring semester. So I've gotten a bunch of tape with him, worked a little more closely with him as far as trying to get him bigger and faster and stronger. I'm a true believer that if your sprint mechanics can improve, then you can save a lot of time in the weight room and get just as fast, if not faster, quicker, and therefore help your weight room out. But talking about acceleration mechanics, there's a couple of big points that I look at early. And number one, I should say maybe number a half, right, is going to be the start position at large, right? We utilize dasher timing gates with lasers. So there's an infrared laser that shoots across. If it's an infrared, I don't know, but it's a laser that shoots across a reflector. You put a body part in it, and when it's on dash mode, you hold it there for 3 seconds. It knows you go. So to get repeatable outcomes, we need people in the same stance, and the 2-point stance works the best for us, and it's really easy to teach. So in a 2-point stance, when I'm looking at from a side view, kind of over here, closer to 4 or 5 o'clock, looking over at Andrew, is that you're going to notice a basketball player that really hasn't played another sport for any long duration of time. Basketball has been his main sport for a long time. You'll see a longer leg pattern here and a shorter torso with longer limbs in the upper half. So he's a little bit more on the slender side. He's definitely grown a few inches over the last year or so. I don't want to say a few inches like a lot, but he's definitely grown in the neighborhood of an inch or so, I would say, in the last year, if not more. So he's going to be in a really good position with enough training history to line up in this stance comfortably and look pretty easy with it, because basketball guys like to play low. They're taught to play low. The low man wins, like in a lot of different sports, but they're constantly having to stay in it. And now he's been with TP for a while. Like, he's going to be really comfortable in this 2-point stance, getting the shin over the ankle, right? Getting the hip loaded back, kind of like loading up a slingshot, getting ready to go forward. As he starts to take off in his first step after he worked through his stance on his 2-point start, we're trying to look to see how he gets into and what he looks like, and what I define as the launch position. Now, the launch position for me is once we're starting to pass over the anchor of the ground, or the anchor of the foot between the ground, and that's going to be on the ball of the foot, hopefully, right? It should be. It's going to be on the ball of the foot, the transverse arch. And we're also going to see that the timing is such that when the knees are side by side, that typically this early in the sprint, very rare you'll see a deviation of this as far as timing is concerned, especially once you've trained a little bit, is that the arms will be side by side, and you're going to get a pretty good idea of how this athlete can stay in posture or stay at depth based on where they're at in their launch position. So launch position for me is going to be moving from mid to late stance, right? We're starting to get over that anchor like I mentioned before. Knees are side by side, arms are side by side. I'm getting forward up top, right? And I'm starting to get over the top with my downside leg. So that's one of the positions I check after getting out of the start. And for Andrew here, for Mr. Freedy, you're going to see a lot of good things early, right? We're going to see a nice shin angle reference towards the floor, a nice heel lift, good, firm, even pressure across the transverse arch. When I say even, I mean correct. Like when I say even, I mean like it's exactly even across the plane. It's definitely starting to already rotate out towards that big toe, that big toe starting to spin and that heel starting to spin inward. So it's going to change as you go, but even as incorrect, right? Or as correct. So from looking up to there, you're going to see a nice stacked femur on top of that knee with that shin going forward. That means he's starting to launch his body forward. He's starting to get over the top of that leg. His trail leg's starting to follow him. And for basketball guys, typically you're going to see a lower heel recovery. They spend a lot of time on the ground shifting and sliding and gliding and kind of changing directions, if you will, and very rarely moving in a straight line from a fixed position like a 2-point position, right? Very rarely does that occur. So these guys are going to be used to standing on the ground. However, that doesn't mean everybody looks the same. So looking at Freedy already, for my sprint gurus out there, you'd probably define this as kind of a higher heel recovery, right? Shins kind of crossing at knee height. So if anything, you're not kicking yourself in the ass here. It's not the highest of heel recoveries, but it's definitely towards the middle, right? If not slightly above. And why does that occur? So for Freedy, like I said, he has a good training background. He's developed some strength and power, key things that you need to be able to train to improve your speed on a regular basis. But by no means is just all out strength and all out power the only thing you need to work on. But you do need some of it. So now Freedy's at the point where he's gotten a little stronger, he's gotten a little bit more powerful, but he hasn't caught up to his frame yet. So I know I don't have an image of Freedy kind of standing straight up and down here, but as you can see from the side, like, kid's got long legs, right? Kid's got long legs, very slender, doesn't carry a lot of mass, but is starting to put on a few pounds of muscle over the last several months, right? Starting to grow up a little bit more too at the same point. So he's going through puberty as he's going through it. So he's still getting used to moving those long legs, even though his strength and power have gone up, right? It's trending in the direction we want, but it's not, it's not complete yet. So you're going to see guys like Freedy with this background where he's going to have to find space somewhere. And I've noticed that if I just tell a guy like Freedy just to go forward and stay low, stay low, stay low, well, usually you create two sides of the body kind of working against each other to help keep the body on plane with whatever direction you're trying to tell it to go with, right? So, for example, we talked about this with Lou in episode 1, where like the upper half's trying to get him up and the lower half's trying to keep him down. Well, Freedy's kind of doing the same thing, but because his limb length is different and his sport background is different, it's expressed in a different way. So if we're looking back here at Freedy, you'll start to see those high heel recoveries, meaning like the heel starting to come up towards the butt or up towards the hamstring once he crosses over and gets to his next step over that mid stance, right? That's just him trying to find space to put the leg somewhere. If he's not able to generate enough force to to get his body from a stationary position, break up the inertia, and go, right? If it's not enough, he's just going to tip right over. So we don't want to tip right over, which is why you see slower athletes or uncoordinated athletes, they have a hard time staying down because the majority of their body weight is going to be as far away from this ankle as they can control. So if you're not able to control that, meaning you're not able to contain, or develop momentum, then you have to do something so you don't trip and fall. So Freedy's at the point now where he doesn't have to be upright because, number one, he played basketball his entire life. He wouldn't have made it this far if he just played upright, right? He's not this 6'8" guy that can just kind of make every team. He has to work, and he's developed his skills pretty significantly. So upright was never really his issue as far as understanding where he had to be. His issue has been, where does he put his legs? So if he's not able to go this way hard enough, essentially, and his legs are so long and they have to carry it out so far to catch him and get to the next step, but at the same time, we know we got to have quick feet and switch and get to the next step quickly. Well, they have to go up, right? They kind of have to start to fold in half early to make space for him, right? Which is totally normal for a guy like Freedy. Is it the most optimal position to be in as far as where you are in your second and third and fourth step? It's not, right? Could it be improved? Of course. But this is at the point now for Freedy where he's in his training phase where we're trying to elevate his ceiling of force production. So we're in that kind of move weight type of phase here while still sprinting at the same time. That's key. So in this move weight phase, I'm hoping that we can get some numbers to tick up as far as peak force production, right? As far as a rate of force production, a rate of force development on the power end of the spectrum. That would be awesome, right? But if we don't keep sprinting alongside of it, we can see some other patterns start to creep up or feed into more. Like on this step right here, where we're looking at Freedy from the side, and this is his right foot, right? And this goes back to that picture I shared with Lou, where it's nice and pretty, almost maintaining triple extension, body's going on in front, arms are side by side, arms are working away from each other, nice knee height up top, but look what it creates. Look what it creates. We're stepping on top of that soccer ball, right? So we've made contact, we're barely in front of the hips, but we have all this body weight out in front, and now my leg is delayed on the switch, which means my arms are off center as well. So now everything is late. Right? Everything is late. So this is a product of Freedy trying to go. His legs have to pick up a little higher because of the power that he's able to develop working with the limb length that he's got at the speed he's trying to go. You'll see a later switch, you'll see a longer contact, and you'll see this big gap between the thigh. From here, because of how flat the foot is, you can watch from a pretty good angle as far as what's limited or delayed in picking up off the floor. So he's going to continue to descend downward and pitch downward with his shin, keeping him from standing up, but also preventing him from picking up speed step to step because of how tall how long his legs are. So kind of to wrap it up here, moving into the next step, that delayed heel lift is going to delay at which point this shin decides to stop, keeping him closer to the ground. And now, because he's still so low, and this is about the 5-yard mark here, he's still so low to the ground, and his upper body is trying to keep him going this way while his lower body is trying to keep up with him and have to go up this way. It creates this long delayed swing and catch that leads to that flat on top of the soccer ball contact and repeats its cycle again as far as delaying when that heel lifts, how firm the pressure may be, and how long he's going to stay pitching down towards the ground. This would be a great action for getting into a Euro type of step or trying to work around a defender that might be playing on top of you and giving you a side and you want to dip the shoulder and go. This is beautiful for stuff like that because you need time for the ball, you need time to decision make, and you need time to accelerate. So being in this low position could be huge. But when you're trying to beat a 10-yard dash, it's going to be suboptimal. So for a guy like Freedy, like I said, he's made a ton of progress, and kind of like Lou, I'm not trying to rip him apart. We're trying to get technical here. If you look at it, technically speaking, great first step, right? Good firm heel, good firm anchor. And he's already getting right into the hip. Look at that knee get set. And he's going to get right over the top into the next one. Bam! This is fantastic. Now, like we picked up that heel so high on left foot, it's going to be a higher impact point, meaning like he has a long way to go down before he collides. And now you can start to see that heel start to mush. We're more under our center of mass compared to out in front. Everything's getting stacked on top. It can't handle it, so it's going to get delayed. And now we're going to try to fight that by offsetting that and getting forward. So his first 2 steps are good. His third step gets a little His fourth step is going to start to get a little flatter. And just to play one through at full speed, just to give you guys the context as far as what this looks like. Gripping and ripping. Good, flat, 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 and you can see it take place. Watch it one more time. Pop, 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 boom, 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 boom. All right. So again, made progress. First few steps are good. In the context for a basketball guy, by no means do I want him having this track type of start. It will actually take away from what he's able to do and be smooth and utilize his skill set on the court. But in the context of trying to, elevate his ceiling and improve his top end speed and improve his ability to accelerate, there's some things you want to continue to clean up, right? So bringing me to my next point, as far as if you're an athlete and you're trying to find a way to train, but you're on a budget, you don't know if you need to hire a coach like me or work with a team or work with a group, It can be a lot. It's a big time commitment. It's a big financial commitment, especially if you're going outside of a school. So a lot of athletes nowadays are turning to ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT or other AI sources can be great. It can be a great tool and resource. So for 60-yard dash training, let's find out what kind of program ChatGPT can spit out, and let's see what I think of it. So the 60-yard dash training, how do I improve my 60 time? It'll correct spelling for me, whatever. Yeah, I meant that. No problem. So you got acceleration, drills, 10-yard sprints, falling starts, 2-point starts, sled sprints, wall switch drills, cues, push back, not up, violent arm action, shin angle forward, 45-degree torso projection, target, improve your first 10 yards by 0.1 of a second. Your 60 usually drops materially. Top speed, it's saying flies, wicket runs, build-ups, step up, step over opposite knee, strike down, relax face and jaw, tall hips. Strength relative to body weight. If you're weak, you leak force. Trap bar 2 times. RDL split squat, chin up. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of these. Elastic. Okay. Sprint mechanics. Common killers. We'll touch on this a little bit. Overstriding, popping up, upright too early, backside mechanics, weak arm action, heel recovery. Okay, so we're getting the point, right? We see a lot of common terms here. I've seen all these kind of cues and kind of suggestions as far as from textbooks and stuff. Textbook-wise, it seems to be pretty on point. However, the nuance behind what it's asking you to do can be missed just like anything else. So I'll use myself as an example. I've been trying to teach myself how to play golf. I still suck. I watch the YouTube videos. I watch Instagram videos. I get help from other people. I try to put it all together. But at the end of the day, I'm swinging clubs with nobody watching me, right? It's really hard to get good constructive feedback unless you're filming every single rep. And even then you film the rep, then what the hell are you looking at, right? So now you got to find something to compare yourself to. So now you go online, you find that you put it side by side. Well, can you do? Maybe get an app like I have on form. You can put it side by side. Okay, great. Now you got your 2 people side by side, and then what? What the hell are you looking at? What causes the thing that you're trying to fix? You see the symptom, the outcome, but what causes the thing you're trying to fix? So with something as technical as sprinting or swinging a golf club, for example, you can get by on the basics for a while. See ball, hit ball, work on your 10-yard dash, work on your first step, try to be explosive, right? Really try to jump out of the line. You got to get stronger, more powerful. Great. It's all pointing in the right direction. However, but what the hell are you supposed to do with that information? If I pull this up and it gave me a workout and I say, hey, you got 3x10 here. Hey, you got 40 yards here. Hey, you can make sure you got this tri block here. Great. It might even spit out the same workout I would generate if I told it to. If I was like, hey, if I do this, spit this out in this order, it might. But just like when I give a program like the Elite Varsity program to Coach Lewis or Sarah at TP, or have Tim run one of my one-on-ones, or vice versa, they give me stuff to run. Whatever I wrote is up for them to interpret, and I can walk it through letter by letter. But at the end of the day, they got to say, hey, this was the plan, and this is what happened. So I adjusted course, whatever it means. And that can be good or bad. That can be, hey, I added actually 5 pounds to his reverse lunge because of blank. Or no, we actually had to skip this set because of, the shoulder, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. So if you're trying to interpret this as an athlete, and even if you say simplified and just tell me exactly what to do, that's not my point. The information might be quote unquote correct and it might work, right? But how it's coached and how it's taught is going to be influenced, is going to influence the outcome of the program. So if you're a 0 and you've never done anything like this before, and you put in those parameters and you even say, hey, what parameters are the most important? Great, this is my parameters, ask me those questions. And it gives you the program, you will get faster, you will get stronger, you will get more explosive if you apply yourself and you do it consistently over and over again, 100%. However, what happens next? I recently heard a good cue or a good metaphor on the old social webs, and I forget the coach's name, but I've used it with a couple of athletes now. And almost like, imagine you have a full tub of toothpaste or tube of toothpaste. You haven't opened it yet. You take the cap off, you can pretty much press anywhere and toothpaste will come out, right? But once that toothpaste tube is kind of empty and you have to start folding it and bending it, crimping it, and trying to figure out how to get that last drop of toothpaste out, That's kind of like the progressions in the weight room. How big that tube is and how much is in there and all that other stuff may be up for debate and might be a big variable for a lot of people. But in general, like when you start, you can pretty much do anything and you will improve. That's how a lot of facilities make their money. It's just making, like 14-year-olds improve. It's really easy to do, right? But how do you get to the next step after that? How do you get the bigger tube? How do you put it back in the toothpaste? Or how do you put the toothpaste back in? Do you need to? I don't know. So it's about what you're doing next. And yes, there are plenty of people and athletes and the genetic freaks and the mental freaks that have put themselves in places to be disciplined enough to stay on a plan and hold themselves accountable, receive criticism and coaching, and had little influence from a professional. And the complete opposite, where parents and athletes have paid for professionals like myself. They've been on multiple teams. They've had people watching every single rep, giving them feedback on every single rep. And they've also worked. So there's 1,000 ways to skin this cat. But what I'm trying to say is, when it comes down to using the internet and specifically AI to generate your programs for you and walk you through it, early it should work. And if you stay consistent, it should continue to work. And if you make the right progressions and the right decisions at the right times, it should continue to work. But do you know how much effort and time and mental space that takes to manage a well-written, effective strength and speed protocol? A lot. And you're going to do that at the same time that you're playing multiple sports or on multiple teams, in conjunction with schoolwork, in conjunction with a job if you're older. Why have that on your plate? So there's more than just having the sense of, I need a good coach to help me get to my next level. It's an investment in your time to say, hey, I'm going to trust you with this. I'm going to follow along. You're going to coach me up. I'm going to receive criticism. I'm going to get technical cues. I'm going to learn how to fail. I'm going to progress, and it's going to be a journey and da-da-da-da. Perfect. That's what the professional is there for. Let them handle it for you, just like you would anything else. When you go to a restaurant and you order the food, you don't hop back in the kitchen and make it. You have the cook do it. So when you go to the gym and you find a performance facility and say, hey, I want to get faster, all right, I got you. You just got to run it. So I guess the metaphor wasn't exactly on point, but you get what I'm trying to say. So to wrap it up, again, kind of going back to the sprint stuff real quick, I do want to talk about one more thing, and I'll use myself as an example. All right, talking about body types and training influences, right? And one influence is technique and speed and outcomes. All right, you take myself, for example, and by no means am I that fast. Like compared to people my age, I'm pretty fast, but I'm no freak. But I've learned enough to say, hey, I need you to look mostly like this. And I tell a lot of my younger athletes, high school and middle school, say, hey, your first goal is to beat me. Beat me in a race. Once you do that, then we can start talking about fancier stuff. But beat me in a race. If this old man is beating you in a race, you got problems. So looking at it from a front view, right? My body type being very different than Freedy's, broad-shouldered up top, weigh about 200 pounds, 5'11". My torso was longer. My limbs, I wouldn't say are short, but are relative to Freedy's limbs and his ratio of his torso to his limbs, mine are much more compact, right? So I don't have to worry about as much drag or lag because of my shorter legs and my shorter arms. I'm also very limited up top in my T-spine where I really don't rotate that well. So I'm going to use a lot of leg kick and arm kick to get my body going, my center of mass going forward. So if you look at it from the front, which is why sprinting is never a 2D element, and I've been taught that earlier from Joel Smith and Darian Barr and Matt Hank from over the last several years. It's not a 2D element. You got to look at it from the front and the backside and recognize why these tendencies start to take place and what they mean. So looking at it from the front side, when you got a bigger body guy like myself who's trying to get from point A to point B with several decades of training experience up to this point, is that you have to be a little bit more delicate with how much toothpaste you're trying to get out of that tube, right? So if I try to go ahead and change this and say, hey, don't think twist, don't think rotate, you just got to hammer the ground and just pound, 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 pound. Well, just from a cueing standpoint, that just sounds so much more painful, right? My knees, my shins, they can't take it no more, right? I don't want to pound like that. I want to glide. I want to go. And I try to take that same strategy to athletes. So when you look at body types and how they're moving from point A to point B, seeing it from the front highlights a lot more, right? So for me, I'm using my legs and my arms to kind of kick me out, create some width, create some torque, and give my force somewhere to go. You're going to see a big wide contact out here and kind of moving, sliding towards the ground. A little misstep, miscue on me. It's going to delay a little bit, but I'm going to be able to keep that heel elevated, work to the next step, and work to my right, and then work back to my left. So a lot of rotation occurring, but in a very different way compared to an athlete built like Freedy, where they're going to have those longer limbs that are able to propel them forward. But if they don't have the force background, if they don't have the strength training background or the strength like somebody like myself does, it's going to be expressed in a different way. So for me, I have an easier time of keeping my torso out in front, being able to make good contact out in front of the hip and roll over to the next step. But I have my limitations. I wouldn't train a guy that looks like me the same way that I would train a guy that looks like Freedy. The body type's too different. I can't expect the same things, right? I played basketball, but not to his level, right? I wasn't that good, right? So it wasn't my only sport that I played. So again, the main point is to put it all together is that speed training at its core can be very simple. The thing I love about speed training is, unlike everything else in life, is that this is the one thing that the bar hasn't been lowered, right? It has been raised continually. We're not accepting slower ever, right? Just because some of the kids aren't as fast and we're gonna lower. No. Like, you gotta cook if you want to be fast. There is no if and buts about it, right? But when it comes to speed training at its core, when it's that simple, it can get you going. But if you genuinely want to max out how fast you can go, just like any other skill, you need a coach. You need somebody to help you. You need somebody to give you feedback, and you need competition. You need an atmosphere that's going to push. If you're the fastest guy in a gym or on a team, that's awesome. Find somebody faster and go race against them. That's how you get faster. And then find a professional that helps you figure out how to get faster and keep you safe at the same time and get more quality reps. And that's how you get faster. And you put those two things together, and the possibilities are endless. So I hope you enjoyed the chat. Check me out next time. Like I said, if you have any questions or want to DM me, Coach Nate G on Instagram, TP Strength on Instagram as well, TP_strength, TP Strength on YouTube, and then my email is nate@tpstrength.com. So I'll TP it out here. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.